Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world.
Time! Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayla's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, here's Jim Coyle.
Good day. It's Tuesday, October 14th. This is the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for Jim Coyle once again. And he's had some travel nightmares with his trip back from Eugene, Oregon. And I can say that he'll have to tell the big stories that's with it. But he has surely had a eventful couple of days heading back to the Hoosier State, but that's okay. We'll get through it, adapt, adjust, and improvise, as Sig would say. Be firmly feet planted and where you're at, and move forward, because there is no excuses, like Coach Signetti would say. But I appreciate you all joining me today once again as we get through another Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Today, Mike DeCourcy will be joining us, and Mike will have talk a little bit about this Indiana football team and its, now national, prominence that is out there. The talk gurus and things of all the different things that were said yesterday throughout the Guru Twitterverse about Indiana, as well as others that maybe still need to be convincing. I will leave that to the people down south, I guess you would say, in that respect. But we'll get caught up in some of that, all the different headlines in the world of sports as we get ourselves geared up as we're rolling into these months where we're going to have basketball on hand. You've got Major League Baseball fully into the divisional series. The last couple of nights been some good games with that. And then, of course, you've got multitude of college football games that play now pretty much, it seems like, almost every weekday this year. I do miss the Mac-ation that was on Tuesday nights. But I can completely understand that had lost its luster, I think you would say, in that expense. But again, it's one of those things that right now we just got a convergence of all types of sports going on, big sports headlines. We talked a little bit about this yesterday with Penn State firing James Franklin, their AD there. Dr. Kraft is a Indiana University graduate. He got all his degrees at Indiana, played under Cam Cameron as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, but he does have a Indiana degree, which I found that to be a little ironic with everything there. And then, of course, Coach Signetti's name being mentioned all through yesterday on different shows and such about that. We'll talk a little bit about that, because I just don't firmly think that Coach Signetti would entertain that move. Of course, that could be pure speculation on my part. But that I found very interesting. But the other connection to Dr. Kraft at Penn State is Coach Rule at Nebraska. He gave him his first job at Temple, which I found interesting as well. So a couple of, what's that, 6 degrees separation, the Kevin Bacon thing that you do when you're trying to connect people. It's not too far to connect them when it comes to that tree because of Dr. Kraft and his situation there at Penn State. But interesting enough, I think it's like a $50 million buyout for Mr. James Franklin. I think I would just ask, which door do I exit at with that check in hand? Because, man, that's a lot of money that they're going to pay out to Coach Franklin. And while I'm sure he'd rather be coaching more than anything, that's generational wealth, one would say, in that respect. So we'll leave it at that. Yesterday, I had a chance to catch Kurt Herbstreit in Joey Galloway's, I guess you call it YouTube show. And they were discussing Indiana. And when Joey Galloway released his basic top 5 schools, he had Indiana in it, but I think he had them listed as number 5. And in the chat, as common here, I guess somebody had put in the chat that Kurt Herbstreit is a IU hater. And this was prior to him releasing his top 5. And when that did occur, he had Indiana as the number 1 ranked team in the country. And his reasoning for it, when you look at it from the perspective of at this point in time and all things on the table to be considered, Indiana, in his mind, and his take on it, had the best resume and who they beat. And he said that he felt they were a darn good football team from a year ago. He was waiting for that breakthrough moment, that signature win. And when they did what they did to Oregon this past Saturday, in his mind, with their win there and against Illinois, winning on the road at Iowa in that 3-game gauntlet that we've basically talked about since the summer, he felt that Indiana right now was the best team in the country, which I'm not sure that argument would be too hard to make in terms of how he laid it out. But anyway, I find that a little ironic in that sense. And I didn't know this, but I guess he is or has family relations in his family that have Indiana ties, some graduates. So he's been hearing it, I guess, for the last couple of years in the family tree that he needs to give a little more love to the Hoosiers in that regard. But it's really interesting in that respect. But there's so many different aspects of this coaching carousel that's already started midway, I guess you call midway through the college football season. You know, you've already had Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. That was kind of just waiting for that shoe to drop because there's been friction there I guess I would say for the last 4 or 5 years there at Oklahoma. And they were just waiting for the right time to make that change. And the start that Oklahoma State got off to, they went ahead and made that change. Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, Sam Pittman at Arkansas, and of course Foster at UCLA, who will be visiting Bloomington here in a couple weeks. And they have been red hot, I guess you could say, 2-0 since the change in that dynamic. Penn State elevating one of their coaches there, former player Terry Smith, will have the interim tag at Penn State, no other changes are expected at this time. So you're going to get pretty much what you've seen offensively and defensively, which I think is good for Indiana in that regard. You know, UCLA made the change at offensive coordinator, letting Tino go and promoting there with Coach Neuheisel. So it's interesting in that respect. But we're going to step away here real quick, take our first break on the day. When we come back, we'll have Mr. Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News, all right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, here with you today. Going to bring in Mike DeCourcy in. Mike, how are you today, sir?
I am well, Shannon. How are you?
I'm good. I've been been brought out of the bullpen the last 2 days for Jim, as he's having some trouble.
From Oregon, is that the problem?
He must be. His travel sometimes gets pretty erratic, and when he goes somewhere, and getting back from somewhere always seems to be the kicker. But he's had some interesting flight scenarios, not necessarily tied to any of the government shutdown and stuff, but I'll let him tell those stories, because those are not mine to tell. But he's got me here ready to roll for him, the backup, QB2, I guess you'd call it, in the day and age that we're in right now. But appreciate you jumping on. Quite a few topics in college football to discuss today. And of course, we'll dive into that here quickly. And of course, college basketball season right around the corner. You had NBA season, the preseason and such. But, Indiana finally got the signature win, I guess you could say, that I know Jim's talked about, I've talked about, with that national mindset of what those writers and, gurus, I guess you could say, wanted to see from Indiana. They wanted to see a win against a Oregon, Ohio State, or, those prominent branded names. And they finally got it. They went and did it at Oregon this past Saturday, 30-20, and matter of factly did it in a fashion that really shocked a lot of the nation because they only gave up 41 yards in the fourth quarter in that second half.
Yeah, and they did not play a great offensive game, even though they scored 30 points. It wasn't the typical SIG game in that sense. It was a battle, and it was about survival, and they were able to go through that and succeed. And I think that was what was really impressive. I tweeted, I don't know, early fourth, halfway through the fourth quarter. This is a phenomenal college football game. You had two terrific teams out there just battling one another, hard hitting, which I don't think that those who'd seen Indiana briefly in last season when they might have seen them against Ohio State or against Notre Dame in the playoff. They didn't see that level of aggression defensively. It was still a work in progress. And then they come back this year. And of course, you play that Illinois game, and a lot of people are expecting a great football game. And Indiana ended that in almost no time. So we didn't see that. It wasn't necessary. Certainly, they played that level of defense, or you don't shut down Luke Altmaier. But the necessity to do it for 4 quarters wasn't there. But it was essential to do it for all 4 quarters on Saturday, because if you didn't, then Oregon would have found a way to get that win at home. So it was a great performance by Indiana, and I think that performance, if you think about it, that game, that performance, it redefines what college football is in the expanded playoff era. You can't just look at the jersey name anymore. You can't look at the rankings and just and say, okay, this is how it's going to go. It's a more balanced game than it was 10 years ago. There are more quality teams. Is Ohio State extraordinary? Absolutely. Is it going to take an excellent effort to beat them? No doubt. But for most of the teams in college football right now, if you're not at your best and you're playing a quality opponent, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting in some of the discussions yesterday I'd call it more of a positive light in the sense about that game Saturday at Oregon. And you're correct. Physical game, a great college football game because you had the different ebbs and flows to it, guys making extraordinary plays at critical times. And one individual said that, had you taken Indiana's jersey and put an Ohio State on it or a Michigan on it, they would have been raving about that game to the point of talking that team is going to be the eventual national champion because of what was on the front of their jersey name as opposed to anything else. And I thought about that for a second, and that's probably a fair assumption in that regard. But when you look at now the polls in that respect, and Indiana's climb, what they've done all year, and they've moved up steadily, the win at Iowa next, and then, of course, Saturday. What do you think, or how would you shape the perception of Indiana right now out there in the college football world when you discuss a top 5 team and their chances of not just going into the Big Ten championship, which will probably, if they do, will be more than likely against Ohio State, but potentially winning a national championship? How do you see that now with Indiana's perception amongst the nation in the fact that now they've kind of cracked that barrier for people to take this football club and Coach Cignetti seriously right now?
I'll be honest with you, Shannon. I think that's one of the beauties of 2025 college football is perception doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It mattered. There's no doubt. When I was covering Penn State in 1986, it mattered. Perception was a lot of it. It wasn't everything because you had to succeed on the field. You had to win the games. But if you were BYU in 1984, I think it was, you basically had to have everybody else basically quit the sport almost in order to get a national championship for your undefeated season. It's not like that any longer. So their perception matters a little bit, I guess, when the committee gets into the room and starts talking. But if you put up 11-0, 12-0, whatever, I mean, it depends on the week that they're discussing this. But I guess by the time they get there and really do it for real, then you're talking about getting into double-digit wins with 1 or no losses. And then it doesn't matter that much anymore because the numbers are there. The success is there. The road win against Oregon is there. The blowout of Illinois is there. And then obviously they have to go to Penn State. Penn State I will say that Penn State will not be as challenging a game now as it would have been had they stayed the course at the minimum to the end of the season. I'm not saying Terry Smith won't do a good job, but it's not the same outfit now. And of course, they lost their starting quarterback as well.
That has a big part of it.
Yeah, but all of that, you have, if you're Indiana now, you have to think seriously about keeping your eye on the target, and the target is the team in front of you, because you don't have to worry about any of that other stuff now. Brand, this, that. You've got that quality win that you were looking for. You have an outstanding football team, and you cannot allow the glory of last Saturday to color anything that you do the rest of the year if you want to take this serious shot at winning this thing. And after what happened on Saturday, that doesn't guarantee that they will, but it guarantees that they can. If you can go into that stadium and win against that team, then you have a shot against everybody. You're going to have to play better probably on a neutral field against Ohio State, whether it's in Indy or in the eventual playoff championship or wherever you might meet them. You'll have to play better. But I think better is out there. I mean, Francisco Mendoza did not have a classic game. He played winning football, but he wasn't exceptional. So better's out there, and you have to continue to pursue that if you're going to fulfill the possibilities you open for yourself on Saturday.
Yeah, agree with that concept. And I think outside of the building, I think that's what we all talk about, the noise. But I think Coach Cignetti really has the attention and focus of his ball club, and has since the day he walked on this campus, that they've done a great job with mindset. And like you said, worrying about the next team, not the last team, or I've arrived, and patting yourself too much on the back. I'm sure he'll use the rat poison phrase that Coach Saban has used since he was with Nick for some time there at Alabama. But I said the other day, and see if you kind of maybe agree with this, from the standpoint now that they've kind of got that win and coming off a 3-game gauntlet that we all said was kind of a brutal start to the Big Ten and past it. But I think Coach Cignetti's biggest challenge is now like you said, the biggest challenge he'll have is keeping everyone grounded, the focus being the next squad, the next team, not what's down the road, not what was behind, and not feeling that they've arrived because they've done what, everybody said you had to do. I think this will be his toughest coaching job now forward for the rest of the season, based upon the noise, the rumors of who may go where in the college football carousel. Kind of your thoughts on that from that perspective, and him as the head coach at Indiana.
Yeah, I think that you're right about that. I think there are distractions now that would not have been apparent had Penn State not done what they did on Sunday, had they not made that move. There are distractions now. And I think he has to make a decision at some point about how to process that himself, whether or not it depends on how loud the noise gets. Right now, he's just a name on a bunch of sports writers' coaching lists, and it's a logical name. He's a phenomenal coach. He's from Pennsylvania. I wouldn't say his ties to Penn State are necessarily concrete. His ties to Penn State are he grew up in Western Pennsylvania. That's it. His dad coached at West Virginia So he wasn't necessarily and he also grew up as much in West Virginia as he did in Western Pennsylvania. So I don't know that his ties to Penn State are all that significant, but it's a great football job. I think that in my mind, given where Kurt is in his career and his lifespan and all that stuff, I mean, if he stays at Indiana and continues to do this, I mean, Shannon, I literally believe they'll build a statue of him outside Memorial Stadium. I mean, I really believe that. Like if he does this for 5 or 6 more years, I think there'll be a statue. And so you walk away from that to go do what? I always look at it as, okay, if you built this here, what do they offer that you can't have, that you can't have where you are? I mean, yeah, they got another 40,000 seats, so they probably got a little bit more money. And you have to decide whether that's important to you. I don't know. I think he's in a really good position because he's not in anybody's shadow. He's the shadow. He's casting the shadow. Every Indiana football coach that follows him, and he's not going to coach forever. Every Indiana football coach that follows him will now have to live up to the Curt Cignetti standard. That's reality. Before it was Lee Corso, and Lee did a nice job and was a funny guy. And so, I mean, that was not that hard a standard. Maybe comedy wise, it was hard, but in terms of the coaching, you could top that. So I think he's going to have to decide at some point whether to make a public declaration, but we're way early in that process. There's not a whole lot going on that says he has to come out and say one way or the other. Unless the questions start to pop up in his press conference, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case because Penn State won't be all that active publicly in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That's one of the oddities of the new action to fire coaches in season, which was pretty rare in the past, and now it's becoming pretty common.
Yeah.
Is that what do you really do? I mean, you can do the same research if you decide you want to move on. You can do the same research privately behind the scenes. You could even call agents and say, "Hey, would your guy be interested?" You could do all that. So, I don't know exactly what you accomplish by making a move like that, but there are more and more schools that are jumping into that particular pool.
Yeah, and we'll talk more kind of about that here in our second segment because, get to take on that Penn State scenario and whatnot. But one question here before we head to this break. The Big Ten reputation now, that's been the SEC's, hammering that the SEC is better than the Big Ten because, and one of those is that they're so deep in the SEC. Where do you stand on that? Because that's a perceptionary mindset that one thinks this and one thinks that, and everybody's going to have their opinion on it. But now that, Indiana's entered the fray, they're a good team. You've got Oregon, who's still going to be good, Michigan, USC. I think Iowa's a darn good football team. And as you said, you still have Penn State out there. They're not all of a sudden terrible because they've lost 3 games. They still got a pretty darn good football team. Kind of how do you see that reputation now of the Big Ten when you put it on that national stage, when you have to go up against the SEC and their talking points?
Coach, I think the one thing that the Big Ten left undone this fall and needs to address is that they played, at least relative to the SEC, because I didn't check Big 12 or ACC, but I just wanted to look at the two of them. They played fewer Power 4 non-conference games than the SEC did. I think it was, if I remember correctly, I had numbers where I did the charts, but if I remember correctly, it was basically all but 1 or 2 in the SEC played a Power 4. And in the Big Ten, it was about half, give or take. And now the difference, of course, is that the Big Ten will play one more Power Power 4 game per team automatically, because in this season they have 9 conference games and the SEC has 8. So that doesn't mean the SEC played a stronger schedule. That's not the point I'm making. But they took a greater opportunity to try to establish their national superiority, so to speak. We are not only, we not only have a cauldron in this league, but we can go out and beat your league as well. And that's something that the Big Ten did not take as much advantage of. Of course, Ohio State beat Texas, which was a big non-conference win. But teams like Ohio State played no such opponents. Indiana, unfortunately, that's the one quibble I would have with Coach Sig, was deciding to not, they'd already made the decision to withdraw from the Louisville series a few years ago, and then adding on the Virginia series as well. I think that would have been helpful. With what they did to Illinois, I don't think that Virginia, although a very quality football team, I don't think that would have been problematic for them if they had taken that game on. So that's the one thing. But I think that if you look at, the fact that Nebraska defeated Cincinnati, which is doing really well in the Big 12, wins like that, and I mentioned the Texas win. There's a few others out there. I think that they're showing that they have beaten some have beaten quality opponents. And then, of course, within the league, you look at a Maryland, you look at the obvious ones, the ones that are ranked. You look at Washington, which has played very well, except in the, not able to hang with Ohio State. It's a good league. It really is. Whether it's better than the SEC or not is hard to establish with not enough intra-conference performances. But I don't think there's any question that they can look at the SEC and say, we're in the game. We're in the picture with you guys. Let's go fight it out in January and figure out who's really the best.
That's correct, I guess. And that may change here in the next year or so with the SEC going to that 9th conference game and such. So it'll be an interesting dynamic. I hope to get the crossover games, because I think that would be even cool as well during the year. But hey, we're going to step aside, take one break here. We'll come back with Mike and talk some more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, alongside Mr. Mike DeCourcy, and talking a little bit of college football here, and talk a little bit more about it. Then we'll segue in some other things, because there are a lot of things happening in the world of sports this week. The Penn State situation, and we talked about SIG's success and James Franklin's not being able to get the big win over his tenure there at Penn State. I think he was like 1 and whatever against a top 10 team, I guess. And then
I think the number was at the end, it was 4-21 against the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that you look at and like, wow, that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And then here's Coach Cignetti within his second year already has 2 wins against a top 10 team and then a top 5 team. And I do think there are some things there that kind of puts in the minds of these ADs, well, if he can do it at Indiana, we sure as heck can do it at school X, Y, or Z. And why aren't we? Because that's crazy. But with Penn State, what was your take on that whole thing there, you know, with what went down? And it was such a crazy scenario. I know they lost that tough game, double overtime to Oregon. And that one was kind of the first dagger. The performance at UCLA, and then, of course, this weekend against Northwestern. But kind of what's your take there at Penn State and all the things that went in with this Coach Franklin situation?
I will say that I think that James Franklin's mistake was allowing his team, his program, to be defined by that number. It was 4-20 and entering the season.
Mm-hmm.
And he should have worked harder, I believe, to have his program defined by, hey, we won double-digit games each of the last 3 years. We won, I believe it was 11, 10, 13 in the previous 3 years. We've done double digits. I think it was 7 out of 11 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He had a losing season in the COVID year, not a great year, and they didn't bounce back great off it either. The 21 season wasn't great, but 22, 23, 24 were phenomenal. And then there were the Saquon Barkley years, which were great. They won the Big Ten in 2016. But they happened to be in the same block as the best program in the country, period. Out of those 21 losses, Shannon, 9 of them were to Ohio State.
Right.
They weren't as good as Ohio State. Oh, gosh. Hey, I'm not as good as Dave Kindred. Should I quit? Should you fire me and go get somebody else? It's just like, that's not how it works. And the reality is, if you keep letting me write a column, eventually I'll write one as good as Dave, maybe.
Right.
But if you look up the street, Shannon, from IU and Matt Painter and what has happened to him over the last 50 years or so. Think back to, it was 2011, and Matt had some success with the Robbie Hummel, Jawan Johnson, Etwan Moore group, and Missouri needed a coach, and he decided to stay in place and stay true to his alma mater, where he wanted to be, et cetera. And then he recruits a couple of guys, a team that didn't quite click, and they end up having, I believe it was in 2013, 14, right around there. I believe they went 5-13 in the Big Ten, and a lot of places might have said, "We're done. We're right. 5-13," and Purdue said, "Now this is our guy," and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm changing the way I'm doing things. I got off track a little bit. From now on, I'm recruiting Purdue guys." I remember this. He stood at Big Ten Media Day in 2014, I believe it was, and said, "From now on, I recruit Purdue guys, the guys who fit what we do." And what Purdue guys has he gotten since then? Think about that. He's gotten Braden Smith. He's gotten Zach Edey, Jaden Ivey. And they've had phenomenal success, and they've won Big Tens, and they've made the Final Four, and they've got to the national championship game. And this year they're a preseason number 1. If you stay in the game at a high level, eventually there's a chance you'll break through. But if you restart the whole process, just getting to the high level again is a challenge. There's no guarantee that you do. The Tennessee Titans decided Mike Vrabel wasn't the guy. They had a bunch of successful years in regular season, never had a playoff breakthrough. And then they had a couple of down years. And down years were, I think, 6-7 wins in a 16-game schedule. They had a couple of down years. So they fire him. He goes to New England. New England's competitive again in the post-Belichick era. And Tennessee won, I think, 4 games in 2 years and just fired their coach again. It's never the right move to fire a successful coach, as long as we're talking about wins and losses and not some other element.
Right.
Just keeping this on wins and losses. It's never a right move to fire a successful coach because it takes a dip. And this is where college football coach has to understand now. It's not 2015 anymore. There are going to, first of all, there's greater balance because of NIL, transfer portal, et cetera. And the fact that for instance, within the Big Ten, everybody's got a little bit of money now. I mean, maybe a lot of money, but everybody's got money. It's not just a few schools. With the television contract, they're all well capitalized. So they all have a chance to be competitive. And if you get the right guy, like if you get a Sig, you can do what he's doing. If you get Matt Rule at Nebraska, you can do what he's doing. If you're at a place that it could go either way and you hire the wrong coach, yeah, you can go wrong. But if you're at an elite coach or an elite program, and we saw with Michigan when they ended the Lloyd Carr era, and my colleague Bill Bender wrote about this very eloquently on Sunday when the Franklin thing happened. They went through the Rich Rod years, and it never clicked. And then the era after that, it never clicked. And then they brought in Harbaugh, and they were there were a lot of people who wanted Harbaugh out after the bad COVID year. And they said, nah, we're going to stick with it. And look what happened. They play in the national championship game. They win it in 23. You don't change coaches because of a particular daunting process. So, we're 4-21 against the top 10 teams, so we can do better. He can do better. Figure out how he can do better. And I know they work toward that in this offseason, but I think the constant change in their staffs was part of the reason that they've struggled. And some of that is organic. We have Ricky Rane, so he gets a head coaching job. And so now we got to replace him. Some of it was that, but some of it also was we need a better coordinator. So let's go pay Jim Knowles $3 million. Some of it was that as well, and that has not taken. It has not worked. Is Jim not a good defensive coordinator? I think we know the answer to that. Of course he is, but it's not working. I think there's been a little bit too much of chasing, and James was guilty of that. He was part of that. As I said, I think he worked a little too hard to define the program by what the challenges were and not by what the successes were.
No question. I know. I kind of question the Knowles hire, and I get it. He was the most prominent defensive coordinator in the country at the time. I just don't think he was a Penn State guy, if that makes sense in that respect, because it has some of that flavor towards it as well. And you brought up, for Purdue with Matt Painter, one of the things that drove Tiller out at Purdue for him to just go retire in those days, he came in a very similar situation that Sig did. They were down, then out, and he revitalized it with basketball, basketball on grass, as he would call it. And they got better. They got some better players. They got Breeze in there. And next thing you know, they were going to the Rose Bowl. And the succession of 8, 9, 10 win seasons after a while, people got antsy and got, greedy, because that wasn't good enough anymore for Purdue. They needed to win a national championship. And after a while, that kind of drove Tiller to the point like, look, we are what we are. Probably, unless the chips fall the right way, we're probably not going to win a national championship, but we may go to Rose Bowl every once in a while. We may do X, Y, and Z. And Purdue got too greedy. And that's what I think happened. And they reflected back on that with the Matt Painter situation because of that scenario, because they regretted how that all went down with Tiller. And they had a great coach there, but at the end of the day, they got their expectations way out of whack. And Tiller just finally said, look, we're not going to do that here unless you do X, Y, or Z. And they weren't willing to do X, Y, and Z. And that's what it all came down to with that. So in the end, I do think you're correct with some of these a successful coach. I think you hang in there with, regardless of what you discussed there with those national prominent games and such. If the coach is, not got a great record, a losing record, so forth and so on, they've given him the opportunity, that's a different thing. Right.
Yeah.
But I think with James Franklin, though, he just, like I said, with, you said there, at least get through the year, reevaluate, but don't do something rash that you're going to ultimately regret because you can't find the next James Franklin. And that's always a possibility with that today. Let's jump into the basketball world because we're starting here very shortly with everything. IU basketball preseason expectations and that such kind of thought they had a great Puerto Rico trip. I think we got to know a little bit about Coach DeFries and his outlook. He's done some things there, allowed the media into a couple, basketball practices so they can get their eyes on the kids and stuff. And that really never happened. He's done a tremendous job in outreach to the community there in Bloomington. Has done a lot that way. But when you look at this ball club in his first year there, what are those expectations in your mind as it pertains to this job at Indiana and making, bringing Indiana back into the fold as one of those teams at the top tier in the Big Ten?
Yeah, if you're in the top tier in the Big Ten, you're going to be in the top tier in the nation. It's one or 1A of the best conferences in college basketball. It's gone, it had the early part of the decade where it was clearly the best. And then, of course, last season, I don't think anybody could challenge the SEC based on the 14 out of 16 getting in the NCAAs, which was a deserved number. But if you're contending for a Big Ten championship, you're in the picture for the national championship. So I think that certainly is what Indiana has expected and has a fair right to expect. And it's been a while since they've consistently been in that picture. But I think that I think he's done the right things early on. I think he understands how that the connection to the public. Indiana has a special situation. If you don't connect to the public, you're already fighting one of the prongs that makes Indiana great. At Kentucky, for instance, John Calipari did it immediately. Mark Pope did it immediately. They have different styles of doing it, but that was important to them, and they understood the importance of why that can make the program great. I don't think that has been consistently done at Indiana over recent years. And let's be fair. I mean, for Bob, he didn't have to. I mean,
right.
He between his charisma and his success, he didn't have to do any outreach. He didn't have to connect to the public. It wasn't important because they won championships and played at such a high level so quickly that he didn't have to do that. But the coach now, if he doesn't, is making a mistake. And Darren is not making that mistake. He's handling it well. He's embracing it. I think that part of it is really important. And then the next part of it is the recruiting piece. And that takes a little time because you walk in on March 15th or whatever it was, and it takes a little time to get classes together in terms of the high school group. And I think the high school component at Indiana is going to be more important than it might be at some other places because Indiana, and I've lived in 5 states and I've covered the game across the country for 40 years. And Indiana still has that exceptional high school coaching component that doesn't exist in other places at the same level. I'm not saying there aren't great high school coaches everywhere, but in Indiana, right. It's consistently the body of that is at a higher level. And so you want to connect to those guys. You want to get the next Braylon Mullins to say, of course I'm staying home at Indiana. You want to get that. Whereas, Braylon's going to play his freshman year at Connecticut instead. I think the next guy that fits that mold, you're going to want to be competitive for him. You're going to want to sign him. So that's a part of it. But I think for the first year, and it's interesting you ask, Coach, because I've seen such a wide range of expectations for this Indiana team. I've seen some rate this team really highly, and I've seen some that sort of say, we'll wait and see kind of deal. And I don't know that I've seen a wider range of predictions / expectations for any team in the country than for these Hoosiers. But for me, it's just about, I think they can be competitive. It's not what Tom Crean walked into, where you're just trying to establish a standard. Like, we're going to play this hard no matter who we put out there. And if we don't play this hard, you're not going back on the floor. That was all that Tom had when he got to IU. No, now you got guys. So but this is how we're going to play, is the first important component. This is going to be Indiana basketball in the Darren DeVries years. We're going to play like this. And I think it's going to be attractive offensive basketball. It's going to be team oriented. The ball's going to move. Defense is going to be important, but you're going to know it's Indiana by the jerseys and by how they play on offense. Those are the most important components for him to establish this year.
Yeah, and I do think, as you said, that Indiana mindset defensively will be there. That will be attractive in the sense that, kind of arcing back to the Knight era, where you had that aggressive defense, the diving for the ball and things of that nature. I do think that's part of Coach DeVries' mindset, and, in that respect, when it comes to good, tough defense on the court and such. So, but anyway, I appreciate that. You got a chance to stay around for another segment, or do you need to kick out of here?
Unfortunately, I can't. I wish I could, Coach, but
I'm greedy, Mike. I am so greedy to talk. I get a chance to talk to you, and we can boom, 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 boom. But I appreciate you coming on today, and we'll see you next week here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Thanks, Coach.
All righty, partner. Mike DeCourcy, big from the Sporting News, joining us here today on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And, I do really think this Coach DeVries' basketball mindset and how he's already approached things on many different levels. I do think you're going to get that aggressive style of basketball, offensively, defensively. And I do think he's one of those guys that will mold what they do on the court to what he has at his disposal on the bench, and, and he's top 5 or 6 players. So I do look at this basketball team in that, from that mindset. Now, does that translate into a multitude of wins and things of that nature? We'll see. But I do think Scott Dolson got this hire right as well, in what he was able to get in this coaching search, just like he did with Coach Signetti. And it's hard. It's hard to reach out and find that right guy in this day and age. And you really have to understand the dynamics in the hiring process, but more importantly, what these guys utilize in the back rooms to figure out who are those guys that fit the makeup at Indiana. And I know that Scott Dolson utilized a lot of data in his searches and algorithms and things of that nature to break down the potential candidates and such, and was able to do it with that in mind, and had a plan to go do it the right way, and not let the noise and the splash hire be that guiding light in that regard. We're going to step aside again. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Beautiful day again. A little foggy this morning here in the great northeast Indiana, as there was some dense fog up here. A lot of schools right now are on fall break, and some even getting a full week at this time. I want to know where this schedule was when I was in school like that. It'd been nice to have a full week off here in October. But thanks for again to Mike DeCourcy for joining us there, giving his insights on some things, and really appreciate his willingness to do a couple segments there as we head into the latter part of this Tuesday. Major League Baseball, the divisional series are off and running, and the Mariners are off to a 2-0 lead in the American League series against the Toronto Blue Jays, and they are playing really good baseball, getting a lot of clutch hitting. Last night they won 10-3, which was really surprising, but they just exploded for the runs there to start the ball game, and then in the middle part getting 7 runs, and 5, 6, 7 was kind of the doom for the Blue Jays, who had quite, responded in that game and tied it up in the bottom of the second. But right now, the Mariners bats are clicking. Julio Rodriguez homered last night, and they've gotten some clutch hits and great defense as well. Of course, there are some other components in there, but it's one of those things that right now I'm not sure the Mariners can be beat. I just think they're a team right now, the way they've played this postseason. They've been, really good in their ball games, and then they won their opening game 3-1 there in Toronto. And so they go home back to Seattle with a 2-0 lead in that game. And then the Dodgers and Milwaukee got off to their start last night. Pitchers duel got a 2-1 ball game for the Dodgers last night. Snell getting the win, 3-0. He has a .86 ERA. That is absolutely crazy. And they scored in the 6th, added an insurance in the 9th they needed, because the Brewers finally got on the board in the ninth, but they only had 2 hits all night long. So pretty tough ball game. That game is also, game 2 is today as well, this evening at 8. And Yamato and I think it's Peralta going tonight for the Brewers. Yamato 1-1 with a 2.53. Peralta is 1-1 as well, but he's at a 4.66 ERA. So game 2 of the National League will be tonight there in Milwaukee. Travel day for the American League, and they'll pick back up on, I think that's Thursday, the 15th, there in Seattle. But pretty darn good Major League Baseball in that regard going on right now for those of us that enjoy everything when it comes to this time of year, with all the different sports kind of being on, and you're having to flip around quite a bit. Now with YouTube TV is nice because they have that multi-view now, and you can watch, I think it's up to 4 games now on their setup. And that in itself is worth the price of admission, in my opinion, from that perspective. And again, when you can watch all those through the night, through the week, it kind of in my household doesn't please my wife too much, but she understands. The old coach in me misses Saturdays, especially in college football, in that respect. But she gets it. But other than that, it's like I said, it's, it keeps me occupied in this respect. The Indianapolis Colts, again, we talked to Greg Rakestraw yesterday. Big win over the Cardinals. Anthony Richardson, again, having the bad luck hit him again, is injured. So now they were going to have to get themselves up to speed to get a good quality backup there for Jones. They will in that respect. But Anthony Richardson, I tell you, it's crazy. That kid has just gone through everything and anything in his short-lived NFL career. And I don't know what the Colts will do when it comes to him next year and his status in Indy, whether or not he's still a subject of them wanting to build their franchise around his abilities now that they've got kind of Daniel Jones in there playing for the Colts and playing well. But it's one of those things, as Greg Rakestraw was saying, in warmups, they lose 2 of their players in their pregame warm-up session. And that's a pretty frustrating thing to do when you're having those issues, especially to some of your best players. But the Colts, in that respect, they just have had some unfortunate events in that aspect of things. But the win they got Sunday against the Cardinals, 31-27, finding a way to win. They got some of their players back in that in that aspect of things, but they have officially placed Anthony Richardson and Ruben Lowry and claimed safety Ruben Lowry off of waivers from the Ravens. So adding to that secondary, but placing Anthony on the injured reserve list. So they had to go out and get a guy in the secondary because that's the position this year, it seems, for Indianapolis, is that their DB and secondary situation is fragile. It was fragile in camp, as they had many guys out with that. from that standpoint. So they're going to have to get some help from outside of the organization, and they have, of course, but right now, the way Daniel Jones is playing and that defense, I think the Colts have a chance this year to have a very, very good year. And Shane Steichen is a good football coach. I think he's a really good football coach in that respect. So we'll see what that is. But a lot of NFL rookies this year have been very successful in their first season. Drake May has climbed into the top 10 in the NFL quarterback index. He has been pretty darn good thus far. And as a rookie in the NFL, to be playing at high level, he has done wonders there in New England for Mike Vrabel, and bringing back that era of Tom Brady's success when he was under center there for the Patriots. But he has done quite well thus far. Completed 82% of his passes against the Panthers back in September, 203 yards, QBR rating of 155.6. Then against the Bills, completed 73%, 273. He's only thrown right now, I believe, 2 interceptions on the year, completing over 73% of his passes, 1,500 yards. So he has done really well in his first year under center there for the Pats. And Mike Vrabel, in that respect, has done quite well in his first season already, trying to restore the Pats program there since Belichick left. And it's been a interesting time period for Mr. Bill Belichick, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But the NFL has done had some rookies that have stepped up. How about Jacoby Brissett? This guy, a wily veteran, he ended up throwing for 320 yards against the Colts, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. He's been a journeyman now in the NFL ever since he was left the Colts. He's had success at other places as well, but for him to step in Sunday for Kyler Murray for the Cardinals and have the game that he had, and just about got the win there for Arizona against the Colts. That was a phenomenal game. And then Sam Darnoll is having a great time out west, 295 yards on Sunday, 2 touchdowns, and their big win, I think it was against Jacksonville. But here's the guy that still very young and doing well in the NFL in that respect. So let's see if there's any questions here that you may have here in our chat as we roll through this Tuesday on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Question about the Big Ten football championship tickets been sold for game in Indy. I do not believe there has been any announcement as it pertains for what availability there is or isn't for the Big Ten championship. But I would find a way to potentially maybe see if they'll allow you to reserve a set of tickets for that game. I don't know what their ticket rules are or are not, but that'd be a good question. And hey, there's nothing wrong with trying to get yourself in a position in the event that the Hoosiers are in the Big Ten championship game. But I don't know if they've officially gone on sale and where they're at with that, their tickets for the Big Ten championship game. I would assume that the Ohio State Buckeye group will have their big purchase of tickets because they travel well from Columbus. So, but I would check on maybe the Big Ten website to see when that may go on sale for the Big Ten championship game in that respect. Robert says they are on sale on the secondary market. So, but I don't know. Check on the Big Ten website in that respect. So, we talked a little bit about Penn State, James Franklin, a lot of names circling there right now. I do believe Mike's correct in saying that they will start doing what they call a quiet search, where they're just, seeing who is interested potentially and reaching out to those agents that represent those individuals. And the coach that agent represents will probably not know about that inquiry from a Penn State in that respect. So that will be a search that will pick up in speed, of course, as they draw to the end of the season. But we shall see what all that entails with that search, and I'm sure there will be others that will be coming open and potentially in the Big Ten as well. You have Luke Fickell at Wisconsin that's having a really tough year, especially losing this past weekend to Iowa and being shut out 38-0. Quite honestly, that was a little surprising. I know that their portal quarterback they got from Maryland, that Billy Edwards Jr., has been hurt. They've been playing with a backup, but I don't necessarily think things in Wisconsin are all too rosy, especially after this weekend against Iowa. It's kind of a head scratcher there. He is a very good coach. They got some really good players. I mean, they're always stout on defense. They've had issues offensively, of course. He's gone through a couple of coordinators there. And it's hard to have those changes in those type of positions to have immediate success, because you may or may not have that personnel that OC wants to run. Now, I believe they've got Grimes there as their OC. Wiley veteran, NFL background as well, but they have not been able to flip the switch and, get points on the board and things of that nature. Plus their kicking game at times has hurt them. So we're going to step aside now, take another break. We'll come back with the second segment here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, all right after this message.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on Tuesday, as we fastly approaching Hump Day tomorrow. And Indiana Hoosiers entertain the Michigan State Spartans Saturday. Brass spittoon game that Indiana captured last year there in East Lansing. And it's going to be a good ball game, I think. But question here: do I think Coach Sig stays at IU, or do you think that is? Well, yeah, I do think he stays at Indiana. His buyout, I believe, is somewhere near $13 million. So that's another expense that an opposing school would have to pay to get his services. And with Penn State already owing James Franklin $50 million, not counting the other assistants, because you got two coordinators there that are making quite good money as well, well over $1 million. So I think it's a dollars and cents issue. Now, I'm sure Penn State, if that was what they wanted and they were going to throw big money for this type of situation, who knows? But I don't think Sig's about that glitz and glamour of a Power 4 school. I mean, you look at his history as a coach. He was at Alabama under Nick Saban. He wanted to be a head coach, and an opportunity came up to be a head coach, not at a Division I school, but at a Division II school in Pennsylvania, where his father had once coached as well, Indiana, PA. They're in a very good Division II league. And he went there with the mindset that he was going to build a resume, a successful resume, as he put it, and see what happens. And then that led his job to Elon, another tough job. It's a private institution, high academic standards, and he had instant success there as well. And that led him to the job at JMU, and he felt that was his last move. I mean, he didn't think he was going to move anywhere else. He was quite happy at James Madison. And, of course, Indiana came calling, and that was his chance to get back to a Power 4 level, which he had to do. And now that he's here and having great success like he felt he could, I think his wife is firmly planted in Bloomington community and loves it there. His kids are all grown and quite successful. Yeah, I just don't necessarily think he's going to make that type of move. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I don't think Coach Sig is all taken about how much money a school may throw at him. And believe me, Penn State is going to, if they want a successful head coach, they will pay for a successful head coach. The one that has a resume like Sig's is kind of hard to not look at and say, man, he's done a tremendous job at a school with less resources than a school like Penn State. But I just don't think that's a job that he's going to, jump the boat for. And I think Mike DeCourcy even said that his ties to Penn State are few and far between. And it's ironic that they are now clamoring for a guy like Sig, where most of the Big Ten schools and the fan base and everything else were quite turned off about Sig's personality when he first arrived on Indiana's campus, with many of the fan bases around the Big Ten, said they couldn't stand him in that respect. But it all changes, baby. When you have those W's behind you and you have big wins, they'll bend the knee to anyone at that sport in that respect. So it's interesting that, and bringing up the Big Ten, you know, some of these, you know, we're, let's see here if I can get this up here. Let's see. That's what I want. Yeah, this ain't very good. I don't understand why this comes out so bad when you share a screen. I don't know if it goes better if I do that. We'll see with it. What I've got up here, of course, is the Big Ten football total offense right now. Indiana is second behind USC, 500 yards a game. USC averaging 552. Then it's Washington, Oregon, Nebraska after them. Indiana's next opponent, Michigan State, is at near the bottom, averaging 331 yards a game, 200 yards passing, and only 131 yards rushing thus far on the season. So right now, Indiana offensively is done quite well. I'm going to see if I can make this any better. Let's see, we go full. See if this helps. Not really. And then when you look at it from a defensive side of the things, Indiana defensively leading the Big Ten, 229 yards total on the year. They're giving up about 142 yards passing a game, 86 yards rushing a game, and 11 points a game. Ohio State is better in that category. They're at 6.8. Matt Patricia leading the dynamic there. And really, Indiana and Ohio State are pretty much tied across the board when you look at it. The Buckeyes have only given up 84 yards rushing, 145 through the air, 229 in total. Their total defense, which is pretty darn good. That Iowa team is third in the Big Ten in the defensive category, which we all saw with our own two eyes. They are a really good defense. I do think Iowa's going to get a quote-unquote big win this year because of their defense and how good their defense is. Then Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State is right there at number 6 in the Big Ten, only giving up 300 yards a game and 18.5 points. So, again, that's a pretty good defense. When you're only giving up 18 points a game, 157 yards passing, 144 yards rushing, to me, that's an offensive problem, not a defensive problem. And you know, the Wildcats are right behind them. You know, Northwestern's defense is only giving up 17.2 points a game. So you can kind of see there now. Michigan State, again, down there at the bottom, 369 on total defense, 238 through the air, 131 on the ground, and they're giving up 31.8 points a game as of right now. I believe that's the worst in the Big Ten points per game. Crazy that Illinois and Rutgers are near the bottom in total defense. When you look at it, it's kind of crazy to see it that way, but it is what it is when it comes to that. Sorry, that was a little blurry. I'm not sure why that doesn't. It did. And let's get me back in here. But you can see there, with all that, Indiana, again, doing quite well in that statistical category with their offense and defense. And Brian Haynes has had the defense locked and loaded ever since he got on campus here. And he has done really well as a defensive coordinator for Indiana. And there's a guy that, he was in, Penn State tried to get him. Ohio State kind of took a run at him, and Indiana was able to open the pocketbook to keep him in Bloomington. And I don't necessarily think it was the money that they were kind of suggesting that he would get at Ohio State or Penn State. But he's loyal to Coach Cignetti, and the reasons he's loyal to Cignetti is, he likes his environment that he creates in his workspace. He's been given total control of the defense, and Stig lets his coaches do the coaching. I mean, he's one of those guys that's a hands-off guy in that respect. So from that standpoint, very, very likable person to work for. And sometimes those are few and far between. In the FPI rankings, as it pertains to Indiana, Ohio State and them are 1-2. Indiana and Oregon kind of switch spots there. And I wish I could blow this up and put it up so it could be displayed. But right now, FPI Power Index, Ohio State's at 25.9. Indiana 22.8. So there you can see their projected winning of the ESPN's database is 11.8 games, which is pretty much all of them in my mindset. 26.1% winning out. They have a 38% chance to win the Big Ten, 92.6% of getting in the playoffs. So Indiana very much so in their own driver's seat and destiny control when you look at their opportunities in the Big Ten and what lies ahead of them from a schedule standpoint. Not that it's a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. They have State coming in this week. Again, they've kind of struggled on the year. They do. And I know that their starting quarterback, Childs, is probably a 50-50 for this game Saturday. But they just have not had the success they've wanted there with Coach Smith, as he had come from Oregon State and done very well out west. But right now it's been a kind of a disappointment there in East Lansing for him. In that respect, you got UCLA after that game. And then, of course, a trip to Penn State, which we all know is a very difficult place to go play. And then, of course, you come back Wisconsin and finish up with a bucket game against Purdue in that respects. Let's see if there's any questions I missed here in that respects. Ohio State's defense is the best, maybe the best in the history of. Yeah, I mean, they've done well. Jim Knowles, again, last year at Ohio State, top-ranked defense, great players, Caleb Downs being one of them, who's a phenomenal safety. In that respect, getting Matt Patricia, the defensive-minded guru, out, who had been in the NFL and is now leading that Ohio State defense, has done wonders there for what they've been able to do as a defense. Not that they've done anything, I don't want to say greater than what Jim Knowles did, because he had just as good a defenses. I guess they, Matt Patricia, and I haven't had a chance to look at Ohio State, but they're not, their defenses are a little bit more disguising than they are anything. Jim Knowles is more of a pressure guy, where Patricia's more of a structure guy, in the sense that he will throw different looks out of his base structure that can be confusing and things of that nature. And then when he wants to bring the heat, he's going to bring it from a disguised look, and that can confuse the quarterback. And when you have the talent that they have there at Ohio State on defense, guys that can run and move well. That makes them that more dangerous of a defense to really have any success of moving the football in that respect. Let's see. Now, the situation down in North Carolina with Belichick, there had been rumblings that he was looking for an exit ramp to get out of Chapel Hill. Him basically wanting to activate his clause that allowed him to do that, where I think he effectively would pay North Carolina $1 million to get out. They have looked very bad. I mean, I don't think there's any way to put it other than just horrendous on the field. And there's been some rumblings there with treatment of players when it comes to former players versus new players and things of that nature. How true that is, but anyone's guess. But I do think the perception of North Carolina and what has all transpired there with Belichick and the young girlfriend and other things that have happened off the field, it's just been a total cluster from the word go there. And I know that the powers that be there in Chapel Hill are wanting to be as helpful and lenient as they want to allow Belichick to build the program. I just don't necessarily think that was a great hire at all. I know Belichick's a great football coach. He's got a great history, but that history is in the NFL, not college football. And it is night and day considering all those things. So again, I just don't see that being a avenue that North Carolina should have traveled down, and now they've got themselves with a mess on their hands and a football program that's sliding further and further down into a hole that they may not get it out of, So that was one where the grass isn't always greener when they fired the previous staff and let them go from that standpoint. But anyway, that in itself, but the Hoosiers right now are in the right mindset framework as a football team with what they've accomplished right now. When we come back, we're going to hear a little bit from the head man and his presser from yesterday, Coach Signetti. We'll do all that and more here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on Tuesday. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for Jim Coyle, who, like I said earlier, has had some definite challenges with travel back from Eugene. Fully anticipate him be back tomorrow, and he can share his travel days here the last couple of days and let everyone in on how that went. Want to get into Coach Cignetti's presser from yesterday and listen to what he said. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but take a chance to listen to what Coach Cignetti said yesterday for his presser.
All right. Good win Saturday. It was a hard-fought physical game. Rip off the rear view mirror, so to speak. Total focus on Michigan State. I think the key now is our response coming off of this game, but that's always the key, right? And this team has met every challenge up to this point because they've been hungry and humble, prepared properly, and put it on the field, which requires commitment, discipline, sacrifice, eliminating the noise and clutter, controlling the controllables, and putting themselves in the best position for success. Because when you prepare properly, it breeds confidence and brings out your best. Playing a good football team this week in Michigan State. They had 2 hard-fought losses on the road against USC and Nebraska. They played really hard and had a chance to win both games, and then returned home, and I'm sure they're not real pleased with their performance. But they got a lot of good players, great coaches, really respect Coach Smith. Did a great job at Oregon State. They got good design in all 3 phases of the game. They got guys that stand out, and I'm expecting their best shot. So this game gives you nothing. You got to earn everything. And it's all about our mindset and our preparation. Questions?
Kurt, I guess from a coach's perspective, what does a quarterback learn about himself and what does a team learn about its quarterback when it sees Fernando respond the way he did? He throws the pick 6. Obviously, the environment changes, the momentum changes. And to answer with his performance on that drive, what does he learn about himself in a moment like that in your experience, and what does his team learn about him?
Well, the quarterback's the key figure. He gets too much credit and too much blame. He overcame adversity. That play wasn't all on him, but at the end of the day, the ball came off his hand. We had pressure in the pocket. He wasn't able to set his feet. The receiver could have flattened the route, and it happened. And we talked about it a lot going into the game. You don't go on the road and win a game like this without being able to overcome adversity and never let doubt or frustration creep in. And that was a prime example of that. And his teammates rallied around him and supported him. And we came back with a 9-play, 75-yard drive. And I think offensively, the best things we did was we responded to their scores with 2 9-play, 75-yard drives, and then had a great 2 minute before the half again, like we did against Iowa, where in 24 seconds we were able to take the ball downfield, kick a 58-yard field goal, and give us momentum going in the locker room. Defensively, we were tremendous most of the time. TFLs, sacks. Second half, gave up 3 points, had 2 interceptions, gave up 41 total yards, not counting the last drive. Where we were in prevent defense. And special teams. The 58-yard field goal, which he made twice, and then Radicek's 2 field goals. But the other teams were good. So it was a great team win. It was a physical, hard-fought game. And, Fernando was under duress at times, made some sensational plays where he got the ball out of his hand, and he ran for yards. So, but, it was going to be hard. And we found a way to overcome it. So now it's really important that we understand who we really are and what's got us to this point always, last year, this year, all the years in the past. What, in this game, what does it take to be successful? You got to have commitment. You got to make sacrifices. You get out what you put in. You got to have discipline to do what you have to do when you have to do it and do it right. You got to have work ethic, attention to detail. You got to control the controllables, eliminate the noise and clutter, which you guys do a great job of providing a lot of that, and stay humble and hungry. This is a big-time opponent coming in here. Every team you face in the Big Ten, the margin for error is very slim. And we have to have a great day today, great meeting, great practice, and stacked days, and then put it on the field.
You mentioned the tackles for losses and sacks, and Dan Lanning after the game said, your pressure in front seven kind of disrupted whatever game plan they had. You've talked a lot about Brian Haynes' scheme and how it's designed to do that. But is there anything unique about this talent group, this front seven that's sort of powered your success? A lot of new faces this year. I don't know, anything unique you've seen from this group that's kind of powered the success they've had?
Well, I think it's all about people and plan, and then the things I just talked about, putting the work in. And we got good players up front. We got really good coaches that coach them, Pat Kuntz and Buda Williams. Of course, Brian oversees the defense, does a tremendous job. And, we've definitely made progress up front. There's no doubt about it. But we also understand we're in a production-oriented business, and what we did yesterday doesn't mean squat, because next week's news will be largely determined by what we do today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then obviously Saturday from 3:30 to 6 o'clock, from play 1 to 150.
Yeah, Coach, wanted to ask about Isaiah Jones. Why is he playing so well, and his development? Is that an example of the kind of development that you want in your program and are seeing in your program?
Yeah, I think everyone is just so proud of Isaiah Jones. He's a great teammate. He's a great leader. He represents everything that we talk about, what it takes to be the best you can be. He was on the team the year before I was hired, but when he showed up, I guess he had a back injury, required surgery, wasn't able to do very much. So he got out there in my first spring, and then fall, played quite a bit the first half of the season in our Joker package. And then Hardy started to play a little bit more. And I think it's just a case of a guy staying healthy. And, these are young guys. Their bodies change. Their work with Derek, the winter, and then the summer builds on the winter, and then you put 2 years together, 2 years in the same scheme. Now you can play faster, react because you recognize. And he is really playing well. I am so happy for him. And he has been a huge playmaker for us.
Kirk, can you talk a little bit about the production you're getting from Wyatt and Landino? They've among the defensive linemen who are playing really well.
Yeah, well, Tucker and Landino have really I've seen those guys really come on the last 3 weeks. Wheeler has been very steady. Ratcliffe's in that mix. Outside, Wyatt, since the day he got here, really has been impressive. He got a great work ethic. He's really smart. He's very versatile. He's a good football player. And that was a key acquisition. The other guy that we added in the spring, after spring, was Daly. Now, he came from a program that wasn't as good as Wyatt's. And when he came in the summer, he wasn't in quite as good a shape, physical condition, as the other guys. But he's a freak athlete. Remember him from when I was at JMU. He came to our high school camp. Guy ran sub-10, 800 meter. Senior year in high school, 230 pounds. And he is really about the middle camp on. And then, of course, you got Kamara out there. But Landino, we've always been very high on him. He's had some nagging injuries that have kept him off the field in his early days. Missed his first spring, last spring, my first spring here. And I see him developing into the player we knew he could be. And, he's got an unlimited ceiling moving forward.
Coach, I'm going to ask you about Roman Hemby. He's a guy obviously at Maryland, always known as a speed guy, could run. It seems like, he does that here, but also it looks like he not only is willing to run in between the tackles and run with power, but he looks like he enjoys it and takes some satisfaction. What have you seen from him, and how big has his addition been for the running game?
When you take anyone out of the portal that you don't have a history with, you can research the production, you can watch the tape, you can talk to people, but you really don't know them, right? Until they're here a while and see how they respond to different situations and how consistent they are day in, day out. Roman Hemby's a warrior. That guy gives 100% every day, every play. Physical runner, fast, smart, great hands, great out of the backfield. And, he's a guy that wants the ball, that you can give the ball to, and he's been durable.
I want to say, you said this team is humble and it's hungry. Where does that hunger and humility come from on y'all's team?
Well, you got a certain blueprint and a plan, things you preach, things that you feel are important. It's my job to communicate those, and the assistants, right, also, and to kind of live that and walk that. And then, the team, right, they need to get the message. But they aren't words, they're actions. And, we've got enough older guys here, and I think having all those JMU guys last year certainly helped with the process. They understood the program, knew what to expect. But this year we added quite a few new guys, veterans, great character, good players, good leaders. You know who they are. I don't need to mention names. But, we got a lot of strong character on this football team, and they're a team. And, the team goals supersede the individual goals. And let's face it, when you enter a season, especially nowadays, because you got a lot of new faces, there's really a lot you still don't know about your team, how they're going to respond. And you learn about your team every week. You really do. And we're going to learn a lot more about our team this week.
Coach Signetti from yesterday's presser discussing the win at Oregon, but as well as he put it, ripping the rear view mirror off. And again, I think the one thing that makes Signetti so unique is the fact that he sounds the same today in all of his Sigisms as he did when he walked on Indiana's campus 2 years ago in December and made a splash with some of the things that he stated as far as at the basketball game, the Google me comment. And he has said in this year even that he felt he had to be a little bit brash, a little bit out front to get everyone shaken up a little bit to understand that he's going to win here. And when he does win, he's going to need everybody behind him. And I don't think that there isn't a full band of Indiana Hoosiers that are riding along with Coach Signetti on this journey. And as he said, each and every week will be a big challenge for this ball club. It just is. It's the Big Ten. It's, expect the unexpected, control the controllables, as he said. You can't have control of things that are so far out of your hands that your focus has to be on yourself. and your teammates and what the importance of that is. And that is being grounded in what you do as a football team on a daily basis. It is a day in, day out challenge to perform and get a little bit better each day. As he said, he's still learning about this football club and what they are and who they are and the makeup that they have. Even though he's been around a lot of those guys for, 5 years or more, and then bringing in a different nucleus of guys this year from different ball clubs around the Big Ten, especially Roman Hemby, Wyatt, who I think is still the biggest steal they had in the portal this offseason. I just thought that was a huge get for them, as well as Hemby. And when you have Cignetti saying that he's a warrior, you can understand the respect Roman Hemby has in that locker room with this football club and how he's perceived amongst his teammates. So there is a lot of nuggets in that presser from yesterday as it pertains to the mindset you can expect from this ball club, as well as what leadership is going to be provided from Coach Cignetti. And it's the same thing that he said from day one, the blueprint he has and how he will implement that blueprint. And it starts with him and moves down through the players or the coaches to the players, to the department, to the athletic department, the president of the university as well. And right now that blueprint is coming to life right in front of our eyes in what this Hoosier football team has done thus far. But like he said, when he got here, winning is the difference between winning and losing is about that much. And remember, Indiana under Tom Allen, I think, had lost 7 games that were 1 point or 1 score or less. And that is remarkable considering now where the Hoosiers are and the success that they've had under Sig, being 6-0 and being able to be on the other side of the coin when it came down to being victorious on a Saturday. I want to thank you all for being here with us on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Again, Jim will be back tomorrow. I say that with a pretty good certainty that he will be if he gets all his travels situated today. And I can understand the frustration that he has gone through the last 24 hours coming back from Eugene. But he'll share with you that dynamic of his travel tomorrow on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Glad that I was able to step in the last 2 days and be a part of the show, and all the great fans of the show in the chat. Appreciate your guidance and direction through these last couple of days, as always, providing input and suggestions as it pertains to questions that we may have answered. But until tomorrow, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and this has been Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. We'll see you tomorrow, all right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.